Hi, my name's Charlotte, and I am a compulsive overeater, and really grateful to have been asked to share my experience, strength, and hope today. Um, just so I remember, so my qualifying is that I have been in OA since July 2004, and I have my abstinence date is November 3rd, 2007. So, God willing, I'm due a birthday. However, it's a one day at a time program. So I'm nearly 17. Um, I so yeah, weight wise, I have I do it in sizes if that. So my biggest was I think I was about a size 18. I was never 100 pounder, but my biggest was a size 18 and my smallest was a size 6. I have spent my whole life trying to sculpt my body. Um, whilst having the disease of compulsive overeating, and to want to be thin. So I'm plugging my battery. Um, to want to be thin, but to have an illness where you can't stop eating, is terrifying, and that was my experience. Um, Please bear with if I go blank. I'm on a bit of treatment at the moment. I can sometimes have total brain fog. Let's see where we go with this. I've got a few bits from the big book I'd like to share because it helps me focus on the solution in my experience. And I speak only my own experience. I don't speak for OA as a whole. So I worked my steps through the big book about Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm going to read from the doctor's opinion. It's page XXVIII at the bottom, changing the words drink to food and alcohol to compulsive overeater. So it says at the bottom paragraph, men and women binge essentially because they like the effect produced by food. The sensation is so elusive, while they admit it is dangerous, they cannot after a time differentiate the true from the false. To them, their compulsive overeating life seems the only normal one. They're restless, irritable, discontented, unless they can again experience a sense of ease and comfort, which comes at once by taking a few compulsive bites they see others taking with impunity. After this comes the desire again. As so many do, that phenomenon of craving develops. They pass through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful with a firm resolution not to be. For me, that's the Monday morning diet. This is repeated over and over. And unless the person can experience an entire psychic change, there's very little hope of his recovery. I have a food problem. I am a compulsive overeater. And I also have a me problem, which is what the steps showed me. I never thought I had a me problem. But I remember that the paragraph in the big book which struck me the most because I was so fiercely angry about it and thought it was outrageous. But working the steps revealed that it says page 62, selfishness, self-centeredness, that I think is the root of our troubles. Totally outraged, totally offended. And then it goes on to say, that was my bit, driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity. We step on the toes of others and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt us seemingly without provocation, but invariably we find that at some time in the past, we've made decisions based on self, which later place us in a position to be hurt. My whole life has always been about me. You're thinking what you're thinking because of me, and I heard it the other day, some person going to a meeting said about when was bad, she thought it was because of her. I thought I was all powerful. And my whole life I have struggled with food. Um, it was said, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. And I started compulsively eating from the age of 6. Food was a comfort, and my body became an obsession. And then, the diet started at age 11. I was binging, purging by the age of 15. And then I started looking for alternative ways to suppress my appetite. So I smoked profusely from the age of 15. I was taking speed, at that age. And then I progressed on to harder drugs, not because I wanted to do them, but because I was looking for appetite suppressants because all I wanted to do was eat. I am an alcoholic, but I used that to try and manipulate and navigate the food. So all of my manifestations of this illness are centered around me wanting to control my compulsion to overeat, and I can't escape it. It doesn't matter where I go. Before I came into, well, as I was coming into recovery, I put myself in 5 different fellowships, thinking that was the answer. It was just distracting me from the problem. I got into relationship after relationship. I even think I tried to get one of my partners to take me through the steps. I was absolutely insane. And I remember, from I never, everybody else was always the problem. That's what I remember growing up. I couldn't see that I had created decisions based on self. I just couldn't see it at all. And so when I came into recovery, and we talked about the tool of writing earlier, there was so much writing. I had never spoken truth, and then had to put it on paper. And what I've learned in recovery is I can't lie with the evidence. I don't have the same sponsor that I had in 2000, and my first sponsor was in 2004. I don't have the same sponsor that gave me the abstinence, showed me how to be abstinent I have today. I have the same step one, powerless over food, that my life is unmanageable, and that doesn't change. Fear, it talked about here. My whole life was about starting a new job. When I start this job, I'll stop throwing up. When I do this, I'll stop eating. I'll be perfect when I'll be on the Monday morning diet. I'll stop eating. I'll go on a health kick. I'll just eat carbohydrates. I'll limit carbohydrates. There was all this. I'll just eat fruit. No, I won't eat fruit. I'll go on this diet, round and round and round, and it drove me nuts. It drove me nuts. And my behavior, talked about psychic change as well. What is that? For me, the psychic change has come as a result of working the steps. So I now do not have food obsession. I mean, I can say that it's an absolute miracle. There's a bit in the promises, but there's step 10 promises where sorry if I'm going all over the place. It says, we react sanely and normally, and we will find that this has happened automatically. We will see that our new attitude toward food has been given to us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. I can have ice cream in my fridge today. I can bake for people today, and I have no desire to eat it. And that is a miracle. For somebody who literally couldn't go 20 minutes, I'd be like, right, everything back again. And then back in the car, down to Tesco's, filling up the stuff, and I couldn't even get to the checkout without eating it, and it was filled, the baskets, sitting in car parks on my own in the car, just shoving food in my mouth, hiding. And this program has been such a miracle because I did get a sponsor, and she did take me through 12 steps. I did it in the OA workbook, and I taken my way through the steps and carried on eating. And that didn't work for me. I shared a lot of feelings, but it wasn't until I actually worked the big book as a textbook and manual structured, and I listened to a sponsor who said, do you have an honest desire to stop eating compulsively? Are you willing to go to any lengths for your recovery? And are you willing to take on sponsor suggestions? And I gave the answers on the phone to her while stuffing my mouth with licorice. Yeah, ready. She says, why don't you go back? Why don't you have a think about these questions, and come back to me? And by the time I got back to her, I was absolutely broken. I had been in recovery for 3 years. I'd been in OA for 3 years at that point, bounced around from sponsor to sponsor, looking for a mum, looking for a counsellor, looking for a friend. And it wasn't helping me. We talked about sponsorship being a tool of recovery at the beginning of the meeting, and it really is a tool. And a really helpful, intrinsic and foundational tool to recovery. I need somebody's experience. I need to know how to be abstinent. And if my sponsor was abstinent, someone talked about a light in somebody's eyes earlier. She had the light in her eyes. And I went through the doctor's opinion first, and I wrote down, she asked me to write between 5 and 10 examples of eating binges. What was I eating? What did it taste like? Just some details about it. And then we went through the step work together, looking for allergy foods, looking for things, because I can binge on anything, but there were certain things I just couldn't stop eating. Once I pick up, I cannot stop. Hand to mouth, hand to mouth, hand to mouth. I don't care if I steal off you. I don't care. Is
That's
that
10
10?
minutes. But also just to let you know,
Okay.
you'll go crackly sometimes. So I don't know if you want to turn your camera off.
Okay. Let me take the battery out. Thank you for letting me know. Yeah, I can turn my camera off if that helps. Um,
Let's
okay.
try
So,
either way. Right now, your sound is perfect. So it comes and goes.
okay.
Yeah, but it's
Okay,
lovely to see you
great.
talk. It's lovely to see you as well.
Okay, let me try this back again. There we go. Okay, so I wrote down what my binges looked like on paper and I read it to her. I felt exposed um, and vulnerable, but I needed to be honest. I was so dishonest. I'd never talked to anybody about what I was doing with food and the depths I was going to. And I read it to the sponsor. And I called her every morning. I gave her my food plan. I told her what my action plan was for the day. She guided me. We talked about food. I hadn't got a clue. I'd never cooked. I used to eat takeaway and I used to take, diet pills. I didn't cook. I learned how to cook a potato. I kind of like it was a slow process. I was terrified, but I learned how to get from breakfast to lunch and lunch to dinner and dinner to head on the pillow abstinent, and it was a miracle. I cried my way through it, raged my way through it, obsessed my way through it, and I made the calls. The tool of telephone, the tool of connecting with another compulsive overeater, talking about the food, talking about the illness, talking about shame, fear, feelings. But at the end of the day, being abstinent and getting honest with myself was the key. And I'm so grateful for that. And I'm so grateful for the hours that the lady listened to me, free of charge. I tried, I paid hundreds of pounds for people to listen to my stuff. And I used to leave the sessions, with the hypnotherapist, the psychiatrist, the counselor. And I'm not begrudging any of these things, by the way. It says in the big book, never begrudge a good doctor, practitioner, or whatever. But they didn't help me get abstinent. It was the experience, strength, and hope of another compulsive overeater who was willing to take the time with me. And I read this stuff about step one and I started to see what my illness looked like. So every time I thought about binging, and there's a brilliant leaflet, I think it's been discontinued and amalgamated with another leaflet, but it was called Before You Take That First Compulsive Bite, Remember. And it had about 20 bullet points on it of why it was a good idea not to binge. And that bit about being willing to go to any length, that was handbag material. Wherever I went, that thing was on me, kind of like, and, I used to even have it out when I was eating my abstinent sandwich, so it was food covered, which was a bit ironic, but it was abstinent food, and I had other leaflets. That's OA has come in all shapes and sizes was a good one I read, and there was a plan of eating. I think it's called A New Plan of Eating, because it talks about why am I looking at what, where, when, and why I eat food, in abstinence? Why am I doing this? Why am I going to meetings? Because, OA was not my first port of call. I did not want to belong to a fellowship called Overeaters Anonymous. It was not glamorous and didn't go with my lifestyle. So I'm now, I'm getting over myself. And I read my step one to my sponsor. I had the evidence in black and white. I could see what my allergy foods were, and I was handing my food over. And I got to the point where it was a no-brainer, step two, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Not will, could. That means that I have a part to play in this relationship with a higher power. I didn't believe in a higher power, but when I came in, I was so angry with God that yeah, I was willing to go into the kitchen and ask a higher power to guide my hands and help me not to pick up. I was willing to say thank you at the end of the meal so I didn't go back to the fridge, and those were the things I put in, and the steps have helped me build a spiritual relationship and have faith today. And I got to step two and I wrote a job description of my higher power based on the bit in the big book. I can't remember the page, but it says, why don't you choose your own conception of God? And I was like, okay. So I wrote this big list. I need God to help me stop compulsively overeating. That was the first one. Yes, I needed comfort and love and all. I needed a God that will help me be real with myself, that will show, give me boundaries. I have no boundaries. I'm a, what do they call it? I'm just a bandit. I don't have any moral, flair within my. This program has taught me how to be a human being with values and integrity and morals and respect for you. I can be present with you today and enjoy you for who you are. I had no bother with that. I couldn't be bothered with you, kind of like I didn't care about your feelings because I didn't even know what mine were. I had no empathy or ability to be outside myself unless there was a motive or something in it for me.
15 minutes.
Is that 15? So handed my will and my life over to a higher power, and that basically was working the rest of the steps. And I'm really grateful to be here today. I hope that helps someone, especially the newcomer in the room. Thank you.